So my name is Becker. I'm the CEO and president of AnyClip. We're going to speak about AnyClip in a sec, but let's start with understanding what we do. So imagine that you watch a Bond movie, and you see this watch, and you say, if I could only know how to buy that, where exactly to buy this watch. Or imagine that the ladies here in the audience, you look at the same beautiful dress, and you just think for yourself, how could I buy or know who the designer is? Imagine that you watch a basketball game. I'm a big Warriors fan, and I just want to see all the shots, or free shots, or all the highlights of the game of last night in a press of a button. Just in the press of a button to stream the best actions in the game itself, just in the press of a button. Or that you are a CMO and you have this huge budget and you want to run an advertising campaign, let's say on top of YouTube, and you want to make sure that you absolutely are not adjacent to any malicious content whatsoever. Malicious content can be ISIS, can be child abuse, can be sex and alcohol and profanity, and so forth. So these are just very few examples of what you can do when you have the metadata or the content metadata in place. AnyClip is about that. AnyClip is about video intelligence. It's about, I can use some buzzwords like AI and machine learning, things like that, but it's not the right place to do it right now. Let's say that we are digitizing metadata to make any video transferable and taxonomized in real time. Overall, we are more than 120 employees. The headquarters are in Israel. There are offices in New York. There are offices in LA, London, and Germany. We won second time in a row as the fast-growing company in Israel. And everything that you see here is anchored by a few patents. We worked on this platform and this technology for a few years, anchored by a few patents. Dozens of engineers work on that. And this is who we are. So going back, there are so many use cases. And eventually, when we had this technology, we wanted to come up with some major pain points, some existential problem that address a huge market. And eventually, we landed on two pain points that I think that most of you are aware of. One of them is user privacy. You know it is GDPR, but obviously it is much bigger than that. And brand safety. And again, brand safety is malicious content, anything that you don't want to be adjacent to. Now, to understand why these two pain points are so painful, you have to understand how this entire digital media landscape is encapsulated. DSPs, SSPs, agencies, content agencies, creative agencies, DMPs, or many other buzzwords, all in all are encapsulated into one theme, one saying, how to deliver the right message to the right customer at the right time. It's all about it. So let's speak about the right customer. So the user privacy transformation, I'm sure that everybody is aware of the GDPR, but it's only started with GDPR. It's coming up fast to the state as well. It's the ability to keep our data privately for us. We do not want to share our data to third-party companies. It was very common until GDPR had some kind of rules that sets this up and protected us against those companies who are wishing to know everything about us. I think that there were two game-changing issues or events that happened in the States. The first one was Cambridge Analytica, and following to that, the testimony of Zuckerberg in front of the Congress. These by themselves brought a lot of buzz into the industry in the US. And currently, there is a new act that is coming up around January 2020, and all other states will follow, which means that user privacy takes place in the state. So if you do not know what the user is all about, if you don't have the data about the user, how can you serve the right message to the right user, right? Is there any other way besides knowing who the user is that can still tell us that there is a user that is highly engaged and this is the right message to deliver at the right time? And then there's the right time. So what is the right time? So let's assume that you do have the metadata. You do know what the user is all about. How do you know this is the right time? If I'm a sports fan, how will Nike know that this is the right time to sell a product, to convince me to buy something? But it is much worse. How do you not know that this is like the worst time ever to run your ads? And let's go back to YouTube and just search for YouTube child abuse, YouTube ISIS, and YouTube brain safety. You're going to find over the past 3 years many companies that decided to ditch YouTube just because they found themselves advertising adjacent to child abuse, to other malicious content like profanity and things like that. Why? Because there is not a single solution currently, as we speak, that dives into the content and tell the brand in real time what the content is all about. And this is where we come to the picture. What is AnyClip? Our claim to fame engine, we call it Luminous, and that's the ability to analyze video in real time, any video. It can be from broadcaster, it can be by crawling Facebook, it's by crawling YouTube, it's by crawling millions of websites, and we analyze the content. So there's a lot of way, or a lot of buzzwords going on by how we're able to analyze video content in real time and still be very accurate. So we analyze and we tag according to millions of parameters, millions of keywords. We can detect more than 20 million people, 20 more brands, and so forth. And then we have those taxonomies that are anchored by a few patterns. Every time that we want to find something in video, there is taxonomy. Our claim to fame is brain safety, and with an accuracy of 95% and more, we are able in real time to detect anything relates to malicious content, from killing and death and profanity and sex and alcohol, and you name it. We have another taxonomy that tells us what the sentiment is all about. Car crash, one would say it's okay, it's brain safe, but who wants to be correlated or be adjacent to something that happens that is automatic? So this is another taxonomy. We have another taxonomy. This is the claim to fame of AnyClip. It's about contextual targeting. It's about the advertising categories. There are hundreds of advertising categories. Let's pick one, sports. So beneath sports, what kind of sport? Is it tennis? Is it basketball? If it's basketball, is it Steph Curry? Is it a dunk? Is it assist? And so forth. One use case, we work with Turner. They gave us hundreds of hours of March Madness. They asked us to find all the places that basketball players either howled, kissed, or cried because the sponsor was Kleenex. That is something that takes us a press of a button, just like that. So in all, we are able to tell you everything in real time about the video itself. What is the business model? AnyClip is capable to run on top of all of the major channels that you can imagine. Actually, we are channel agnostic. You can see one example with The Guardian. The other one is CTV OTT, like Hulu. And there is another one with YouTube. So let's pick one. Let's pick The Guardian. OK, so we are analyzing the game as you speak, and we're providing the metadata and conveying the metadata as we speak to different brands. Now, let's go back. Do we know who the user is? There are plenty of companies that will tell you who the user is. But there's GDPR, there's user privacy. We don't need that. What we know is that there is a great game here with Liverpool and Barcelona. And we know how to detect the pinnacle moments in the game itself. We know the players, we know the shoes, we know everything about it. We know that there is a user that is highly engaged right now, is definitely very excited, and then we find a goal. Isn't that the perfect moment for the perfect user to sell something of Adidas? Adidas was one of the sponsors of this game, and suddenly he gets the right shoes of one of these players at the right moment, and we don't know anything about you, but we know that you are engaged. Similarly with Lady Gaga, she promotes a movie. She's discussing about some private star. She has lots of emotions and so forth and so forth. This is the right time to sell her perfume. On the other hand, and that is very important, because if there are some brand safety solutions, they are related to publishers. Publishers have tags. It's very easy to analyze pages. It's not as easy to analyze video in YouTube. It is not existing even in CTV and OTT. But we do have this technology in place, and we can run and we can crawl on YouTube, and then right before you make your worst mistake by making your brand messages adjacent to child abuse, adjacent to malicious content, then AnyClip will tell you this is not the content that you want to have because this is not the right time to serve your content. All of the list here is about user data. I'm positive that some names are very familiar, like Adobe, Oracle. Each and every company here is way, way above $1 billion. This is how the industry works. There is one of you over there that the last thing that you wanted to do is to share your own personal information, but guess what? Your name is on each and every one of these platforms. And that belongs to the past, that belongs to even into the present time. The future is about content database. It's about telling you any content, any video content in OTT and CTV, in Facebook, in YouTube, in millions of sites. We're going to tell you what are the pinnacle moments. We're going to tell you what the content is all about. You don't need the user data. You have the user data, it's complementary, that's fine. But we're telling you, we're going to find the right moments for you. And as an example, Microsoft can use our technology to run competitive campaign. You know, every time that Apple is there, we give them the opportunity to run their brand messages next to their worst competitor. So to conclude, the future belongs to content. The future belongs to the contextual metadata. And we like to say, just like with the theme of the presentation itself, that AnyClip is the right platform to deliver the right user at the right moment without compromising the user data. Thank you. Thank you.